Welcome back to the Face of America channel.
By early 1783, the American Revolutionary War was winding down. The British defeat at Yorktown in October 1781 had effectively ended major combat, and peace negotiations in Paris were nearly completed. But for the Continental Army encamped in Newburgh, New York, the end of the war brought no celebration, but uncertainty. The soldiers had endured years of hardship, brutal winters, poor supplies, and irregular pay. Many officers had not received wages in months, some in years. Congress had promised lifetime pensions, half pay for life, to officers as an incentive to stay in service. But by 1782, the national treasury was nearly empty. Under the Articles of Confederation, Congress lacked the powers to levy taxes and was dependent on the states, many of which who were also broke and unwilling to contribute. The army feared that once peace was declared that they would be disbanded without compensation. Their sacrifices, they believed, would be forgotten. In December 1782, a group of senior officers, including Major General Alexander McDougall, Colonel John Brooks, and Colonel Matthias Ogden, sent a memorial to Congress. It requested a lump sum payment in lieu of lifetime pensions and warned that, quote, any further experiments on the Army's patience may have fatal effects, end quote. Congress, divided and under pressure, delayed action. On March 10, 1783, an anonymous letter appeared in the Newburgh camp. It was fiery, emotional, and dangerous. It accused Congress of betraying the Army and urged officers to take decisive action. The letter read, quote, if peace takes place, never sheath your sword until you have obtained full and ample justice. If war continues, carry with you the strong idea of justice and the rights of humanity. End quote. The letter called for a meeting of officers to discuss their response. A second letter followed, claiming that General Washington secretly supported their cause and would not oppose their demands. These letters, later attributed to Major John Armstrong, Jr., aide to General Horatio Gates, were widely circulated. The tone was incendiary. The idea of using the Army to pressure Congress, or even seize control, was no longer theoretical. Some historians believe the conspiracy may have been encouraged by civilians in Congress, who wanted to force action on Army pay. Others argue it was a genuine threat from within the Army itself. Horatio Gates, Washington's longtime rival, was suspected of being involved, though no direct evidence links him to the plot. George Washington was deeply troubled. He condemned the, quote, irregular invitation, end quote, to meet, and saw the letters as a threat to civilian government. But he also understood the soldiers' frustration. He had shared their hardships, and he knew their grievances were real. Rather than suppress the meeting, Washington took control. He scheduled a formal gathering for March 15th and prepared to speak directly to his officers. Behind the scenes, he urged Congress to act swiftly and seriously on the Army's demands. Washington's leadership style was deliberate. He rarely acted impulsively. He understood that the young republic was fragile, and that a military rebellion could destroy everything they had fought for. On March 15, 1783, Washington entered the Temple of Virtue and addressed his officers. His speech was calm, grave, and deeply personal. He began by denouncing the anonymous letters. Quote, this dreadful alternative of either deserting our country in the extremest hour of her distress, or turning our arms against it, has something so shocking in it that humanity revolts at the idea. End quote. He urged his officers to trust Congress and to reject the call to rebellion. Then, in a moment that would become legendary, Washington pulled out a letter from Congress, explaining the nation's financial straits. Struggling to read it, he paused, reached for his new spectacles, and said, quote, "Gentlemen, you must pardon me. I have grown gray in your service, and now find myself growing blind." End quote. The room fell silent. Many officers wept. The rebellion dissolved. This moment, quiet, emotional, and deeply human, was a turning point. Washington's moral authority, built over years of shared sacrifice, carried the day. Washington's appeal worked. The officers abandoned any talk of mutiny. Congress, shaken by the near crisis, approved a compromise. Instead of lifetime pensions, soldiers would receive 5 years of full pay. The Army disbanded peacefully. Washington would later resign his commission and return to private life, a move that stunned the world and cemented his legacy as a leader who refused power. In December 1783, Washington appeared before Congress in Annapolis and said, quote, "Having now finished the work assigned me, I retire from the great theater of action, and bid an affectionate farewell to this august body." End quote. His resignation was unprecedented. In an age of military strongmen and monarchs, Washington's voluntary surrender of power was a radical act. Historians still debate the true nature of the Newburgh conspiracy. Was it a genuine coup attempt, a bluff to pressure Congress, or a civilian plot to force reform? Some argue that Horatio Gates and his circle were quietly encouraging rebellion. Others believe Alexander Hamilton and Gouverneur Morris may have used the Army's unrest to push for a stronger federal government. Historian Richard Kahn, in his seminal work Eagle and Sword, argues that the conspiracy was real, and that Washington's intervention was decisive. Others, like historian Carol Birkin, suggest that the threat was exaggerated, and that Washington used the moment to reinforce his authority. Regardless of intent, the moment revealed how fragile the new republic was, and how easily it could have collapsed under the weight of unpaid promises and political dysfunction. The Newburgh conspiracy is one of the great what-ifs of American history. It's a story of restraint, of moral leadership, and of a man who chose principle over power. Washington's decision to defuse the crisis, not with force but with humility, set a precedent that echoes to this day. Civilian control of the military, peaceful transitions of power, and the idea that leaders serve the people, not the other way around, all trace back to that quiet morning in Newburgh. In a time when cynicism runs high, this story reminds us that integrity matters, that the republic is fragile, and that sometimes the most powerful act is simply to walk away from power.